The trade bell, it breaks some into cold sweats. It certainly inspires creative minds, and it feels like it's ringing at exactly the right time. Hello, Sam Edmund.
Good morning, dear Jarrod.
Is it possible that this is the hour of decision for Callum Coleman-Jones?
I think this morning is a very important morning for Richmond and Callum Coleman-Jones, the ruck forward, the forward ruck who's been agonising over his future. Richmond have dug in. They've tried their best to keep him. It's a 2-year offer on the table. There is a feeling, there is a suggestion, Jarrod, that he's decided not to take that offer. Now, the big decisions are coming today, I'm told, on this. We know that Gold Coast have been really interested and North Melbourne as well. They're the two rival suitors for Callum Coleman-Jones, who has had to be oh so patient. 9 games, 4 years. Nankervis is still there. Ivan Soldo comes back from injury. Jack Riewoldt resigned. Tom Lynch isn't going anywhere. So real decision time for a young emerging player who just wants to play.
If you were tilting the scales, have they tilted in North Melbourne's favour?
I think so. Yeah, I think if he leaves Richmond, it's going to be to the Kangaroos, which if that is the case, is an enormous coup for North Melbourne to prize a player out of Richmond who they desperately want to keep, the Tigers. I think that would be a huge vote of confidence in the direction that North Melbourne are headed. They've been looking for a forward partner to pair with Nick Larkey. Todd Goldstein's close to the end than the beginning. It would make for a nice little addition, I reckon, if he were to get to Arden Street.
And what do you reckon it takes to get him? That's a really interesting equation that a lot of minds are turning to on our text.
That is an interesting question. That's probably one for obviously North Melbourne have got the number 1 pick, which they will use, and then they've got 20, 38, 69. That's probably the next step in the conversation, if you like. Let's just wait and see what happens at the moment. But industry talk is a wash at the moment that Callum Coleman-Jones has given the indication to Richmond that he might not be re-signing.
Jack Silvagni's on your list?
Set to stay at Carlton. It'll be a 2-year deal, Jerry. Now, there were suggestions he was lowballed, and it's a term that has such sort of powerful terminology, doesn't it? And the Blues were putting the squeeze on there, supposedly. That's not the case at all. Club and player currently working through the finer details, but Jack Silvagni almost certain to stay on that new contract at the Blues. And he did show some real signs this year, I thought, as an influential pressure forward. He had no luck with injury, and off the back of that has had 3 separate postseason surgeries on his knee, on his hip, and on his shoulder. So he stays for a couple of years, I think, and they back him in to perhaps have a change of fortune.
Sam Wicks?
Very, very close as well to signing off on a similar contract, a 2-year deal at Sydney. There's just some haggling over not much now, and it's basically a formality, I'm told, that he stays. And, Jarrod, if that's the case, the Swans will have ticked another box in what's been a delicate salary cap juggle. So, good story, Wicks. You know, local product, joined the Swans Academy as an 11 or 12-year-old, Category B rookie in 2018. He's now 21 years of age, established himself as a regular this year, 22 games, some real line-breaking excitement. So, they might have lost Jordan Dawson to South Australia, the Swans, but they have got their star in Luke Parker for another 4 more. Wicks will follow him for another 2. And then they've got their former number 5 draft pick, Dylan Stephens, and about 7 or 8 others still out of contract there as well. And Jarrod, just on the Swans before we leave them, they've just started to turn their attention to last year's exciting 3 draftees who come out of contract next year as well. We have spoken about. So that's Logan McDonald, Errol Goulden and Braden Campbell. The wheels have just started turning there as well.
Daniel Talia, any read?
I think there's a pretty good chance that he becomes a Richmond player as a delisted free agent. I think he can play for another 2 to 3 years, Daniel Talia. We know he had some bad luck with injury this year. He didn't attend the Crows' best and fairest. He does have a point to prove at 29, 200-odd games under the belt. He'd be joining for nothing in a trade sense. We know that David Asprey and Basher Hooley are not playing, so they've lost some experience in the back half, Richmond. I think he'd complement Noah Bolter perfectly. Essendon has had an interest before, but we know they've gone for Talia's former teammate Jake Kelly, who can play on talls and smalls. And then we've got Mabior Chol, who's also likely to walk to Essendon as an unrestricted free agent. But the Tigers have dug in on Coleman-Jones, like we said.
Now, there's an interesting text here that I know plays to a little of what you were contemplating. It stitched Brayshaw into a Chera deal. Brayshaw and future first round for Chera and this year's second round.
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to Adam Chera, who hasn't nominated his club of choice yet because Melbourne have really come hard for him. They've made their pitch, and it's a pitch that impressed Adam Chera. We have spoken about that in the last couple of weeks. So Carlton are in the mix as well, and the logical I guess, the logical choice here. But the D's not having a pick until the second round, so 33 as things stand. If you look at it now, it's going to take a player to make any trade possible here. And you might say, why would Melbourne meet with him if they didn't think they could get a deal done? So what player then becomes involved? Because picks, obviously, you don't need to be Albert Einstein to realise aren't going to get it done. So is it Angus Brayshaw, who has been linked many times over, Jarrod? He's a West Australian at heart. A lot of family remain there, of course. He's contracted until 2025, but he's playing out on a wing. He nearly won a Brownlow playing inside. That's where he would prefer to play. Could Melbourne afford to lose him? And could he be persuaded, if that is the case and the path they go down, to go back and play at Fremantle?
Darren emailed through on a Geelong front, a bit of a deep dive. Jordan Clark, he's linked to, it's Jarrod Brander, isn't it, at West Coast?
Yeah.
So rather than the favoured way, which has always been Fremantle, Darren is pondering, could that be a trade?
Well, we think Geelong have got an ongoing interest in Jarrod Brander. We did raise him more recently, a former boarder at Geelong Grammar. They were interested in him back when he was drafted. I think that remains, that interest. He's still waiting to hear from West Coast, Jarrod Brander, whether he even has a contract going forward. So, and Jordan Clark, we know his story. West Australian, has a year to go on the contract, but it's not playing the game at the moment. Can he be tempted for the second year running to leave? And this time, will he follow through on it?
Central to the thesis there is Quinton Narkle. What have you got a read on the Narkle scenario?
Oh, Richmond's the one that comes up all the time. There's a share of manager. He's really good mates with Shea Bolton, probably best mates. They've got the same manager now after Quinton Narkle changed managers. He used to have the Perth-based Colin Young. Now he's with Ralph Carr, so there's a conduit there. Quinton Narkle's another one who I'm not sure rival clubs are banging down the door on. There are some queries on a few things, but he might make sense at Richmond for all the reasons we mentioned.
Hey, Tim O'Brien is one that's been clicking up on the text each time we ring the trade bell, which we haven't given any air to yet.
No, I'm going to have to take that on board as homework, unfortunately. I don't have anything on Tim O'Brien at the moment, but Mark of the Year contender, wasn't it, this year? Let's have a look at him for tomorrow.
And Port to trade for Tom Mitchell, but I can't figure out the exact scenario. Oblique. I do like oblique as well.
Yeah, Tom Mitchell's an interesting one. We have spoken about him a lot, so we'll just wait and see what happens there. I think there's a bit to play out. And Jordan Dawson, who, as we mentioned earlier, is nominated, or at least has told Sydney he wants to explore a trade back to South Australia. So I think Port's in the box seat for him. He did grow up a Crows supporter. The Crows, I guess, have a greater weaponry to make a trade happen. Whether Port Adelaide go right in for him, we'll see. So
we wait on the Callum Coleman-Jones scenario to potentially reveal itself. We might be at the hour of decision. Clubs are on tenterhooks.
Yeah, I think it comes to a head today with Callum Coleman-Jones.
Excellent. Great addition to the trade bell, Sam. Well
Thanks,
done.
Jared. Cheers.